Hello and welcome to another basketball podcast. I'm your host, Justin Coben, and I'm joined as always by my co-host, Marco Amendola. We've been going throughout the NBA and giving one hot take for every team. Today we're doing the non-playoff teams from last year in the Western Conference. If you haven't watched our hot takes for the Eastern Conference, please check them out on our channel. Thank you to everyone who has subscribed so far. We're trying to grow our channel, and every subscriber means a lot. If you haven't yet, please subscribe to our channel and hit the like button. Our final edition of Hot Takes will release on Friday for the playoff teams in the Western Conference. With all that being said, Marco, how are you today?
Justin, I'm doing very well. Thank you. How are you?
Doing good. I'm doing good. So Marco, we have the Olympics coming up on Saturday. Starts for the basketball teams. What do you think about the USA? Do you think that, they're minus 400. They're very strong favorites. Do you have any concerns with them? Do you think that it's rightful for them to be such a big favorite?
Those are pretty steep odds. I think, you'd like to think that their talent can carry them against any of the other teams. They looked okay in their kind of practice, whatever scrimmages, whatever you want to call them. But I think they'll come together. I think once they lock down a rotation, like they'll focus on the guys that are more team oriented and yeah, they should be the favorite. Obviously Canada's up there, France, Germany. So it could get spicy for the medals, but I think, I think I'm expecting them to win.
Yeah, me too. It's just weird when you have so much talent on a roster. It's like, do you think all these heads are going to butt at any point? And, sometimes one guy has to take over and then another game's another guy has to take over. It's kind of weird. Like in the NBA, you see more balance with teams. Teams know who the stars are. Teams know who the go-to scorer is. It's weird in a situation with like the Olympics when you have so many 1As. I don't know. I'm just a little bit conflicted with a couple of our close wins. I think Canada is really good, like you said. Germany just looks like I feel like they have a lot of camaraderie, like they've played together so much. They feel very balanced, which is cool too.
And Serbia, obviously South Sudan just gave them a hard time. Serbia didn't look great, but I think they could hang with the U.S. With Jokic out there, I feel like there's always a threat. So, but
Yeah.
it seems like that's maybe a favorable group. And then once they're in the knockout stage, so say hypothetically they go 3-0, like if they are going to lose a game, you'd want it to be in the not in the knockout stage. So I don't know. Maybe it's like they run into a Canada early or like a Germany, and it's closer than you think. So yeah, you hope that they don't play star oriented. And yeah, they don't have like a first round loss somehow.
Yeah, it's interesting. Not super concerned, but it'll be fun to watch. We haven't had international basketball at that high level in 4 years, so it's always cool when those types of events come around. It's the World Cup's a little more interesting to me because every country is more balanced. Like the USA in basketball is just so stacked.
Yeah.
Especially on like the women's side too. Like you should see like how much of favorites the women's are. They're like minus 4,000 or something insane. It's just nuts. Basketball is just bred in the States really. But it's funny that we say that and then the top three players in the league are all from other parts of the world, which is crazy.
It's a global game.
But it is a global game now. And I like that. It's becoming more and more like that. Like France will be really good in the years to come with Wemby and Reece Shea and Sarr and all these guys.
Yeah.
So they're a cool team. Canada's young with Shea and Murray, etc. But yeah, I think we can just jump into the pod if you're ready to go. So last year, we're going to go down from the worst team in the league last year to the best team in the league last year in terms of regular season standings. We're going to start with the Portland Trail Blazers. They finished with the worst record in the West. Marco, what's your take for the Blazers?
My take, is that rookie Donovan Clingan will be top 3 in Rookie of the Year voting. Right now, he's around 10th in odds, like plus 2,000. In the order of favorites, it goes Edey, Shepard, Richeche, Uzelis, Connect, Star, Castle, Holland, Dillingham, Bub, and then Klingen's all the way down there. Which I don't know. I don't know. Like I don't know if Edey deserves to be first and Klingon 10th.
I
Like
know.
I think their minutes and their production could probably be similar. Shepard I like, but all the other guys have so many question marks. I think you look at the Trailblazers roster. I don't think Robert Williams is going to be reliable at all. As much as that pains me to say, he's not going to play more than 40 games. DeAndre Ayton, who knows what goes on there. He was kind of in and out of the. He missed a lot of games last year, so I think the minutes will be there for Klingon. Even if he gets like 20, 24 minutes a game. I think the precedent, and I went back to see if there was any sort of similar comp. Walker Kessler 2 years ago was third in Rookie of the Year voting, kind of out of nowhere. And I think Klingon is better passer, better screener, better mover. I think Klingon's going to be good. So, yeah, I'm surprised he's that far down in the odds.
That kind of makes sense. It really depends on Aiton, I feel
Yeah.
like, if he's going to be there and be starting for the majority of the year or if they go super young. I mean, the West, we've been going through the standings here and making our hot takes, and there's only a few teams that I'm convinced will be bad, like one or two, really, which is crazy. So the Blazers are one that we know will be bad. So they're going to have to give opportunity to young guys all year long. So I think that's a good take for sure. I think Klingon, if he can get into the role, and Walker Kessler's a really cool comp. I like that. And then mine for the Blazers, I have Scoot Henderson, your guy, will be top 3 in most improved player voting at the end of the season. Think about this. He had one of the worst seasons of all time from a rookie. Rookie point guards always kind of struggle out the gates, just the way it is, at least young ones. He's going to be given the reins right away this season. There's no Brogdon there. It's just him. He's going to be playing a boatload of minutes, and he's going to be chucking and stuffing the stat sheet. If he's efficient or not, he probably won't be, but he will be stuffing the stat sheet. Year 2 guys don't typically get the award, so that's why I'm a little farther down. But I really believe in him for this season, at least stats wise. He's going to be a monster.
Yeah, I agree. I would say that I don't see that happening, which means that it's a good hot take.
Yeah, it's supposed to be hot.
Yeah, that was appropriately hot, and yeah, I could see him taking big statistical leaps. He could sneaky average 8 assists per game. I wouldn't be shocked. But I just don't know how many games they're going to be winning. I don't know how much he'll contribute to winning basketball anytime soon. And
Yeah, that's the problem
yeah,
with it.
that's but yeah, the talent is there, and I think maybe I could see him in the contention for that award in the future for sure because he kind of fits that mold of like really high draft pick that took a while to pan out, and then all of a sudden, boom. So yeah, I think it's a good hot take.
Yeah, like their roster on paper, I don't think is the worst in the Western Conference. I'll get to who I think the worst is later, but like he averaged 14 points last year. It might be a year early on this take, but um, you know, 14 points, 5.4 assists, really bad efficiency. If he can just get that efficiency up, shooting, mid 40s from the field, he'll be okay. He'll have a pretty big season stats wise. And then if they're like 10th or 11th or 12th in the conference, maybe he's in that conversation.
Yeah, and they're interesting. I think they've shown signs that they're going to commit to youth, and then they go and they trade a pick for Denny, and I guess Denny is still young, but maybe doesn't necessarily like if the Wizards claimed Denny didn't fit their timeline. I don't know that that he fits the Trailblazers timeline either, but we'll see what direction they go. They have a lot of guys. Jeremy Grant,
Yeah,
they could trade. So
Shaden Sharp, man,
Sharp.
for sure. And then for the San Antonio Spurs, I have my spiciest take of the day. It's insane,
Yeah,
by the way.
go for it.
Victor Wembanyama will be your MVP.
Wow. I respect that.
And I'll tell you why. Because they brought CP3 in, and he's never had a point guard. You watch clips of them trying to run Jeremy Sohan at point guard, and he just doesn't have a passer. Never had a pass first guard. Trey Jones was good, was fine, but you get Chris Paul, who's been doing this forever. Has been part of those Clippers Lob City days. He's a point god, as they say. He's old for sure, but he will bring the most out of Wemby, in my opinion. Wemby is the favorite for Defensive Player of the Year by a mile. So let's say he's putting on a defensive clinic every game. He just needs to be scoring more and getting more assists if they run the offense through him. And he's just a little bit more involved offensively. The team's good, which I think they do have a chance to be good next year. Their win total is at 36.5, which is relatively high.
Yeah, that is.
And so the odds makers respect the Spurs. I respect the Spurs. If they're in the play and if they're in the playoffs, then Wemby has a real chance at MVP. I think it's worth it to throw maybe a couple bucks on it if that's available to you.
I went sort of a different direction, and it's a two-pronged take. So I think Wemby will be an all-star, which is pretty impressive for your second year. But the Spurs will be in the bottom three in the West. And maybe that's not too hot of a take because I know that their line's at that sort of 36.5, but that's still pretty far down there in the West. There's just a lot of good teams.
Yeah.
But, I think a lot of the public talk about the Spurs has been very positive, and I'm a believer in the Spurs realistically, but I think there is a timeline where maybe Sohan is not the he's more of a project than an actual future star. Maybe he never develops a shot and it's kind of a clunky player. Maybe Vassell's a little overrated. Maybe Castle's just not that good. Like CP3 is a little older. Maybe it just all goes wrong and Wemby's really good, but they're just kind of like a 30-win team. So yeah, I think I could see them fighting for the play-in, but I could also see them being, a solid like 34-win team. That's the 13 seed, and players develop, and it's a win for the Spurs. But yeah, I think he could be an all-star though. I think that's not, that's it's rare to have a team that far in the standings have an all-star. So I think that adds to the hotness.
Yeah, that's fair. They brought in Harrison Barnes too, which we didn't touch on, which is a good get for them. But there's a world where they're just not ready yet, and they're falling down the standings in what is a improved Western Conference in terms of like the overall depth of talent there. With the Grizzlies getting guys back, we've talked about the Rockets improving in the past, so they could be a team that falls by the wayside there. It just depends on if they're a team that will, rise with the rest of the crop or if they'll fall behind. And then for the Memphis Grizzlies, do you want to give your take for the Grizz?
Yeah, I think I love the voting ones. I think Vince Williams Jr. will be top 3 in Sixth Man of the Year voting. He's going to be a third-year player. Cool. He was a late second-round pick. Last year, quietly averaged 10 points per game, almost 6 rebounds per game, 3.5 assists per game, 38% from 3, and was sneaky, really good defender. And his minutes kind of steadily went up as more and more Grizzlies got hurt, and he kind of was a big chunk of their offense. Then he got hurt, didn't play a lot towards the end of the year. But I think if you follow the Grizzlies, if you watch the Grizzlies at all, like he's a hustler. He's kind of a stereotypical like grit and grind guy, but offensively shows you a lot. I think he's going to be a good pairing with guys like Smart and Bane. Like I think his defense and his shooting will get him minutes. He's going to get every opportunity to play big minutes. And yeah, he was. I was kind of a believer in him fantasy wise last year in our dynasty league, so I kind of followed his production and. Yeah, I think he's real world good too, and he's only 23, so I think a lot of room for improvement. And yeah, and I think the top 3 in the voting implies that the Grizzlies are going to have like a pretty strong regular season.
Yeah, He's an interesting one. Last year was like a huge showcase season for the Grizzlies. They got to see so much just youth movement, just different guys playing tons and tons of minutes. And he was a guy that really stood out, jumped off the page, and it's like, okay, he's definitely a part of their core rotation moving forward. We'll see which other guys they end up going with. If it's, I'm sure they'll have Gigi Jackson in the mix. I don't know if Larabi is going to play. They have a lot of, if Aldama's still even in the mix, like at this point, we'll see which direction they go with their guys. I could see that though. That's an interesting take. Um, Mine, I have the Grizzlies just counter, just against what you said. The Grizzlies will miss the playoffs entirely thanks to a lack of spacing around Ja Morant. So I went and they dug up some numbers. I I know Marcus Smart. I'm a Celtics fan. I've watched him be a very streaky 3-point shooter. He's a 32.3 career 3-point shooter. Jaren Jackson's a 34.5% 3-point shooter. Ja Morant himself averages 31.8% from three over the course of his career. Not amazing numbers. And then we're like, okay, we're going to go with a huge guy in Edey, and that's going to be the perfect fit next to these guys. And I'm just thinking, I don't see it. Desmond Bane is one of the best 3-point shooters in the NBA. I'll give you that. He is an incredible shooter. He's lacked durability some seasons. If he goes down, they're going to have issues. Ja Morant has lacked durability at points in his career. He could go down. Jaren Jackson, also relatively injury prone. I could see a lot going wrong for this team. I don't think Edey is the perfect center there. Like, with all that lack of spacing, as I mentioned, I think they might have to go a Laravia or a Vince Williams way with those guys and Jaren at the five. I don't know how they're going to run it, how it's going to all come together, but my take is that they're going to miss the playoffs.
That is true. They're somehow one of those teams that always has guys that are injured. Like they're somehow, they're like the young Clippers where it's like they're never fully healthy, and then they somehow win games when they're missing a guy, but they're the rare combination of young and unhealthy. Yeah, I mean the West is so loaded, so if anything goes wrong, that it's plausible that this team, despite having talent, could just be like 11th somehow again.
Everyone just assumes that they're going to take this jump back. They're all healthy. Everything's going to happen for them, and they're just penciling them in. 46.5 is their win total. And I just need to see it with this bunch. I've never seen it with Smart there either, really.
And Smart obviously has shown a lot, but it's like he's older. He's not the player he was 2 years ago. So it's like, he scored a lot last year without job, but still, like, who knows what we get from him, like you said. And
as a Celtics fan, I felt like we saw Smart kind of take a step back in the later seasons with the C's, and I don't know if that backcourt is going to be the backcourt of the future there. I love Bane and I love Ja. Say that again?
Maybe it's Vince and Ja.
Dude, honestly, Vince, Ja, and Bane. Like maybe they have to move Smart and get a stretch big or something. Maybe that's the route to go. But I feel like Porzingis would have been a good fit there.
Yeah. Yeah, so up next, do you want to start with the Jazz?
Sure. Okay. So my take for the Jazz is a little long-winded. I have two of John Collins, Lauri Markkanen, and Colin Sexton will get traded before the trade deadline, and they will finish with the worst record in the Western Conference.
Okay.
And I'll tell you why I think they'll get the worst record in the Western Conference. It's because the Thunder own their pick next year. It's top 10 protected, so the Jazz have incentive to lose games. There's a reason for them to not try next year. And Danny Ainge, Danny Ainge, he loves his picks. He's going to be shopping these stars around. He's already been shopping Lowry, as he should, looking for the best package. They have their young core with Keontae, Cody Williams, Taylor Hendricks, Walker Kessler. There's no reason for them not to start pushing to that, future core and trading away those win now guys that they don't need, adding to their asset haul. You see how stacked the Western Conference is. They're the one team that has an incentive to lose and try to make a play for Cooper Flag. So I'm intrigued with how their season's going to go, but I kind of see it going in a negative direction. How about you?
Yeah, well, we have a bit of another basketball podcast history because my take is also that the Utah Jazz will be the worst team in the West.
Wow.
Um,
Look at us.
and yeah, I actually was thinking the same thing too. Of like they're going to trade two of Sexton, Clarkson, and yeah, Collins. That's confusing. John Collins, Sexton, Clarkson.
Yeah, John Collins Sexton.
I think yeah. To add on to your points, like yeah, Laurie could be traded. You know, any of these guys could be traded. Maybe Keontae George is just okay. Like maybe he's just a solid top 20 point guard. You know, maybe that's a ceiling, and he's not this like star. Taylor Hendricks probably is a couple years away from really, yeah, he's still raw. I think it's clear that they're super focused on the future and just the vibes, with Will Hardy as their coach and Danny, like they're definitely playing the long game and they're not really worried about the losses. I think they just want to find the guys that play the way they want to play and kind of build with them. And, these seasons are kind of not throwaways because, yeah, they could end up with Cooper Flag. Feels like he's a Jazz guy. uh,
Yeah.
yeah, I think the Trailblazers could eke out more wins than them. I think the Spurs definitely will. I think they're one of the only teams that are like happy to be the worst team in the league.
Yeah, it's just a testament to the depth of the Western Conference again. They're a team that I think yeah, like you said, they're maybe one or two of the only teams that have reason to be bad.
Yeah.
So I think that's the route we'll see them go. If both of the Another Basketball Podcast hosts are out on the Jazz next year, you should be too. But yeah, and then we can move on to the Houston Rockets. Do you want to give your take for the Rockets?
Yeah, and maybe it's not that hot, but I think Jalen Green's going to be traded. Obviously, they have Reed Shepherd and Amen Thompson, Van Vliet. They made it very publicly known they wanted McCall Bridges, and we're thinking of something around a Green for Bridges swap. Reed's probably more of the two-way player that they want. I think long term in their starting lineup. Jalen has shown scoring flashes, but I don't know. It feels like he's the odd man out, and it's just a matter of who they would ever get for him. Like he's eligible for extension next year. I don't think they're going to pay him whatever his max will be. Like I don't know. And then I was trying to think, well, who's a good fit on the Rockets if they were to trade? And it's like, I mean, who's available? Like Laurie. Maybe they attach a few first round picks with Jalen Green, and they go for like Kuzma or someone like that, just a real player like that can give them a little bit more well rounded of a game. So I don't know. Maybe it's not that hot, but I feel like he's going to be the odd man out there.
Yeah, you've been pretty consistent with the Jalen Green being traded. It is definitely a realistic possibility. We kind of differ on our opinions of Jalen Green, which is good. He had a really bad first half of the season with Sengun, and they haven't shown the chemistry that you want. And if you've always been a Sengun guy, you're a Sengun guy. You believe that they should build around him. Is that correct?
Yeah, I guess it would be a hotter take to say they trade Sengun, and maybe that's where you went.
No, it's not where I went, but
But that would
I feel like it's your belief in Sengun that makes it so you're like, maybe they can't coexist. We haven't seen it yet, and you love Sengun, so maybe Jalen Green's not the guy there. But I think they could improve together as a bunch. Maybe they'll learn to coexist. That's kind of where I went. I see how much talent they have as a whole in Houston. So my take is the Rockets will have home court advantage in the playoffs or in the first round of the playoffs. So like the 4 seed ish for next season. And we touched on Jalen Green. I think he could be that volume scorer that they need. They don't have a huge like obvious guy that's going to be their like lead scorer. He kind of feels like that guy. Van Vliet's kind of like, very pass first, just sniper, but like not a team's lead scorer. Sengun, good post big. Maybe his game's a little bit more limited than Jalen Green because Jalen Green can kind of score at all 3 levels. And then, other than them 3 as like the scorers, Amen Thompson's kind of a defensive clamp. You got Tari Eason, who's a big rebounder off the bench. Jabari Smith is like, 3 and D. not like a team's lead scorer. So I feel like their combination of players in depth, Cam Whitmore off the bench, Reed Shepherd off the bench now too, they're just really good. And we've seen, I'm not a huge fan of Udoka just as like a human, but like we've seen him, he coached the Celtics very well when he was with us, and I feel like that team could be pretty successful after a 500 season last year.
Yeah, if you look at their team top to bottom, you could argue they have a top 4 or 5 talented team. Like, I don't think that's crazy to say, just in terms of like potential at this point. Um,
Yeah,
yeah, I think it's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting who gets their minutes. And I feel like they've shown that they're not necessarily committed to youth. So it's like, I don't think it's as simple as, well, Thompson has the most potential. He's going to get the most minutes. Like, I could see them doing some wonky stuff with the minutes and having a lot of Dylan Brooks and having a lot of Van
yeah.
Fleet. So it's like, hopefully that doesn't hamper the progress of any of these young guys. And they've, yeah. So yeah, I don't know.
It's a
They're a fun team to follow.
Yeah, it's a good luxury to have at the end of the day to have that much depth. They're just so deep, full of talent. Um, I don't mind Dylan Brooks. He's not a bad NBA player, so he could start, and you could give Amen Eason pretty significant minutes with Cam Whitmore off the bench. It could work.
Sneaky Steven Adams.
Yeah, forgot to even mention him. I don't know if he's just a good backup center there, behind Sengun. And if something goes wrong,
He's an
with
adult in the
Sengun.
building.
Yeah, definitely. Maybe he'll help Sengun kind of like defensively and like screen setting wise.
Who's next? So we have 2 more. You want to do Warriors first?
Yes. Okay. So my take again is a little long-winded. The Warriors will take one final swing and miss at saving their dynasty, whether that be, maybe a big trade that doesn't end up working out, something like that. And this year will officially signify the end of the Warriors dynasty. Steph and Draymond will request out after the season. And here's what I'm thinking. So Steph and Dre are free agents, not next season, but the season after. So maybe it's more realistic to say in 2 years it'll be the end. But if the season really goes south right off the bat, they lost Clay. I mean, they brought in Melton, they brought in some other guys. They lost Saric, they brought in Heald as well. I'm not super confident that that's enough around. We saw Wiggins take a step back. Draymond Green has not really looked like himself in recent years. I'm just not convinced with the Warriors with how stacked the West is. Um, I could see them making a splash for Lowry, and it's still not being enough, to be honest with you. I've been kind of going back and forth on the Warriors for a while now, but I feel like that's where I've settled. And I could see Steph had a quote recently that was like, I want to play somewhere where we're winning basketball games. And I know he's a loyal guy, but if they're not winning basketball games, he's not long for the Warriors.
Yeah, I think it depends on a couple of things. My take is that they're going to have a better record than their record last year.
Mm.
And they were 46-36, which isn't great. It's good, not great. The big story has been losing Clay. And I love the moves they made. I like Melton. I like Heald. I like Slow-Mo, Kyle Anderson. I think Pods, Kuminga, Moody, Chase Jackson Davis all develop. And yeah, I mean, Clay shot probably his worst. Like, his 3-point shooting in his career is kind of trending downward. His defense is trending downward. I think they knew maybe it was time, and yeah, like, it feels like someone's going to win that breakup, either Clay or the Warriors. And I feel like my gut is that Warriors are going to be proven right. And like, all those guys, Melton, Buddy, are going to have big years. And yeah, I think Wiggins, probably can't be worse than last year. Maybe a better
I
take would be
know.
that they're going to get above 50 wins and they're going to improve like 4 or 5 games. I think they have one more real shot. Like, I wouldn't be shocked if they're like a top 3 seed and are a tough out in the playoffs.
Dude, I could see it going either way. I'm like so on the fence. It's like Klay Thompson was like a net negative his entire time on the floor last season. So you bring in Hield, you bring in Melton, you bring in all these other options around Steph, and there are other guys who they had their depth pieces with Trace Jackson Davis and Brandon Podziemski, Kuminga, Wiggins. Like that on paper sounds really good. So, I could see it going that way too. I think they're gonna miss Clay. I think Dre and Steph, maybe not Steph, but I think Dre will take another step back, but they're not gonna like have the guts to give up on Dre. So they're gonna keep rolling him out there. And I don't know, I'm not convinced yet. With a lot of teams improving, I just don't know if they have enough. And Heald, I don't think he didn't look amazing last year, in my opinion. And Melton was hurt, so
Do you think they? What do you think their lineups looking like? Steph, Pods, Wiggins, Draymond, Trace.
Kuminga's got to be in there,
Oh
right?
yeah, Kuminga. Kuminga at the Draymond at the 5, Kuminga at the 4, or maybe they don't start
I
Pods.
guess. I know, but like they love pods, and I love pods
Yeah,
too,
he's got
long
like
term.
he's gonna play a lot. So, but yeah, I don't
It
know
could
if
be off the
Heald. I don't
bench
know
though,
if
yeah.
Heald starts. Maybe Melton starts and gets like 25 minutes. I don't know.
I know it's weird. This is the problem they had last year. Is they had so many guys, and they kept switching the rotation,
Yeah,
and
they
they were trying
switch it.
to mix and match to see what worked, and it never. Like some worked better than others, but they still kind of have that same issue.
Yeah,
I find they're not like these are our 3 stars. We have to play them like in old Warriors days, 4 stars when they had KD. So it's just difficult, and they might run into that issue. And I'm not like I don't know if Steve Kerr like gets the most out of those those types of teams. You've only seen him succeed with like super teams. So I'm just not convinced.
that's true. Our last team we're gonna go over this ep. The Sacramento Kings, the Beam team, probably one of my favorite teams in the league. I've kind of adopted them as like a second child. Uh, I liked them in the Boogie Cousins era though, so I don't want to be a Beam team bandwagon hopper, but they're fun. Another one of my guys, my take is Keon Ellis establishes himself as the 5th starter alongside
Wow.
Fox, Sabonis, DeMar, and Keegan Murray. And I think he's going to turn into a really good NBA player. Last year, 42% from 3, elite defender already, just great athlete, great smart player. They're going to run Monk off the bench, probably Herter off the bench, a lot of minutes. Um, I just think he's a good fit alongside Fox and Sabonis, and his 3-point shooting improved throughout the year, and his volume increased a lot. So he's the type of better that works hard and improves steadily. I think he's still in that window where he's young, and I think he's going to play real minutes.
Yeah, I love Keanu Ellis. Sneaky shot 41.7% from three last year, which is crazy. I don't know if they're going to need a more reliable shooter around Sabonis and DeRozan, though. That could be the only real issue with that, but he's like a defensive clamp, you know, steals maniac. Him and Fox get so many steals combined. It's kind of crazy. Um, my take for the Kings is that the Kings will finish as the number 2 seed in the Western Conference. And it's spicy. I'm I'm drinking the Kool-Aid. So my reasoning is DeMar DeRozan, right? You remember that first year he was on the Bulls? He led them to the 1 seed by like the All-Star break. Like they were outstanding when he first arrived and he played with the fire under him. People were talking about him for the most improved player award, which is insane about someone who's an established veteran star. So I thought that's crazy. He comes over after a bunch of kind of middling losing seasons and plays with actual real NBA stars in Sabonis and in Fox. I like the shooting around, and when you have Keegan Murray, you have Kevin Herter, like snipers. There's going to be enough spacing to go around. The offense is going to run through Sabonis, but I feel like DeMar DeRozan, it's got that clutch gene. Fox kind of does too. I feel like after last year, they lost in the play, and they're going to be very annoyed, and they're going to fight and climb their way to the top of the West.
Yeah, I like that a lot. Um, and we've seen it before that they can be a regular season team. You know, they're a team that I trust to kind of stick together and play hard throughout the regular season, but maybe have a lower ceiling in the playoffs. Like maybe they're more focused and consistent in the regular season. You think a little bit about their bench depth, like after Monk and Herter. You know, Trey Lyles is okay. Yeah, but I like that, and I'm a believer in them. And I think DeMar, yeah, he's become underrated, and I think he's going to be motivated. I think he's going to come out and be really good. So I like that.
That's exactly how I feel too with DeMar. And yeah, you're right about the bench depth. Like Malik Monk, favorite to win Sixth Man of the Year. Like that's a huge piece for them. And then Keon Ellis, and then Lyles, I guess. Like Alex Len. They have Orlando Robinson, who I'm a fan of, sneaky. I know. I kind of like him. But yeah, you're right. The bench depth is a little thin. I mean, you could talk about their rookies a little more than I can, but I haven't seen much. But yeah, I just don't think they have a lot. If something goes wrong, if someone gets injured, I could see it not going in that direction. The West is so weird where there's so many different paths that it could go. I feel like there's like 12 teams that I could be like, oh, they could be the 2 seed or the 12th seed. It's like, you know, it's totally within the realm of possibility this year. But this is a world that I want to live in. I want to see the Kings as the 2 seed.
And yeah, they drafted Devin Carter from Providence, who I think is can be okay. He's recovering from surgery right now, so he's going to miss the first little part of the season. But he's kind of, you know, similar player to a Keon Ellis, maybe. Like maybe he's just a better Davion Mitchell that can give them more consistent offense, and so his minutes will be kind of interesting if he's actually playing. He could. Yeah. They're probably one of the more, you know, similar to the Rockets, they're up there for like fun teams with me.
Yeah. They're one of the more durable teams too. You don't really see Fox, Sabonis, DeRozan getting hurt really ever. So that's another reason why it could potentially happen.
That's true. They're like the anti-Grizzlies.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm just going to go with the trends, and that's kind of why my take is that. I think that was fun. We both kind of gave some different. I feel like we weren't kind of on the same page with a lot of our takes, but you know, we found neutral ground with the Jazz, a couple other places. Do you want to take us home here, Marco?
Yeah, well, if you made it this far, thank you so much for watching, listening. We have a YouTube channel, another basketball channel. Right now it's 16 subscribers, which is pretty solid, and I'm a little saddened because it was up to 17 at one point.
It was 17.
So I don't know what happened if someone subscribed and then saw something they didn't like and then unsubscribed. You know, maybe someone's punking us out there. But you know, yeah, if you like our content, you know, look us up on YouTube. Maybe subscribe. Maybe watch some of our older videos. We have a Twitter, another basketball page, and look for us on Spotify, another basketball podcast. It's been a great conversation, Justin. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Marco. And if you're going to leave a comment, don't tell him he looks like Peter Dinklage and Matt Damon combined.
Honestly, that's the nicest thing anyone's ever said about me. So
you take it as a compliment? Yeah, it's not bad. It was pretty funny.
Peter
He kind of died.
I mean, he was great in Elf.
Yeah, Game of Thrones. All right, I don't know.